Alright! Hey guys, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. Today's tutorial is a follow-up to a previous tutorial. A few weeks ago, we made the Bonnie bucket bag. Now this right here is the bag we made in the video. So if you haven't watched that video, I'm going to have a link up here. I'm going to have a link down in the description of the video. Go check out the video for this bag because I am not going to be walking you through the entire process today. Today, I'm going to show you 3 modifications you can do to this bag. Now, you can just do one of the modifications, you can do 2, or you can do all 3. For example, here is the same Bonnie bucket bag with all 3 modifications. I know. So before I go into all the details, let me just remind you that down in the comment section at the very, very top will be a comment from me, and it will have timestamps for every single part of this tutorial. There are 3 different modifications, so they will be grouped in those timestamps. We're going to go through each one at a time. So let's go over what those modifications are. First modification we're going to be showing today is how to make this a backpack. The original Bonnie is a shoulder bag. Beautiful. And in the original tutorial, we actually changed the strap to make it a crossbody purse. This one still has those same side D-rings, so you can still wear it as a shoulder bag or a crossbody, but then we're adding 3 more D-rings to make this a backpack. So let me just show you what it looks like on. So here's the backpack on. You can see that it's not a large backpack. So this would not be suitable for like a school backpack. This is more of a purse backpack. But it is a very flattering shape. It looks good on a lot of different body types. It looks great on kids. It looks great on adults. It's a great mom bag. So that is modification number 1. Modification number 2 is changing up the zipper panel. So if you look at the original bag, the zipper is actually in between 2 layers of the lining, which makes it so that when you zip it, it has to kind of pull the lining a little bit. I didn't love that. So I went ahead and adjusted my zipper panels so that they're flaps. You can see they're still in the lining, but they extend out towards the center of the bag. So instead of the zipper being right there in that lining, the zipper panels extend out towards the center of the bag. What this allows is a nice flat top on the top of the bag with no pulling on the lining. You can see with this adjustment, we did an extended zipper and we have a little zipper tab on the end. That is adjustment number 2. Modification number 3 are these beautiful grommets in drawstring. You can see this modification takes the bag to a whole new level. All you have to do is pull on that drawstring, cinch it up, there you go. Super cute, totally different shape, but exactly the same bag. Isn't that amazing? This might be one of the prettiest bags I've ever made. I love this drawstring option. So the original Bonnie bucket bag by Swoon is a very, very popular bag to make. It comes together very well. It's not super difficult. It's a great beginner moving to intermediate level bag. I will tell you that this grommet adjustment is very, very popular. If you're in the Swoon Facebook group, you'll see a lot of people doing this. Now, a lot of people are using these circle Dritz grommets. I did purchase some of those, and I did not like them. They were way too hard for me to get to work. And if I can't show you how to use it and make it look good, then I can't show you how to make a cool bag. I mean, I can only show you what I can work with, and I couldn't work with those. So instead, I'm using these Oblong Grommets. These are from Emmeline Bags, and I'll show you these have tabs on them. These were much, much easier to install. Now, it is suggested that if you're going to make this drawstring modification, you lose the zipper entirely on the top of the bag. You can see, if we open this up and then close the zipper and then drawstring it up, it kind of puckers up at the top. So when I use the drawstring option, I just keep the zipper open, which pretty much makes it, I mean, why do you have a zipper then if you're not going to shut it? So it's total personal preference. I will be showing you all 3 modifications on one bag just for time's sake, but you do not have to do all 3 of them on the same bag. You can choose to just do the backpack straps and the drawstring, or just do the backpack, or just do the zipper, whatever you want. None of these modifications are dependent on one another. So as always, I will have a link for the pattern and any other related files down in the description of this video. Links for most of what I'm using will be in the description. If you have any questions about material or hardware or tools and where I get it, just leave a comment down below. If you're new to the channel, please consider clicking subscribe. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, any shout outs, anything you want to say, leave them in the comment section. I check on those every single day and I respond to as many as I possibly can. Again, don't forget, this is not a full tutorial. The tutorial for the Bonnie is down in the description. We've already gone through that. This is just the modifications and I will be telling you exactly what step to add them in at. All right, let's get started. So here's what you're going to need for the backpack modification. You're going to need 2 pieces of fabric cut at 4 inches by 40 inches. This can be quilt cotton. I like to use waterproof canvas. If you are using quilt cotton, make sure you interface it with SF101, and you could also add a layer of Decoville Light if your machine is up to it. You're going to need your 2 cuts for the strap connectors that you originally have in the pattern, as well as 3 additional cuts. These will be 2 inches by 4 inches wide. All of mine are quilt cotton and interfaced with SF101. The biggest addition to this modification is the hardware. You're going to need 4 1-inch swivel hooks, 2 1-inch sliders, and then 5 1-inch D-rings. 4 of these are going to be these little triangle rings that I have. And then for the top of the backpack to hold the 2 hooks, I'm going to use this 1-inch D-ring. The triangle rings, the sliders, and the swivel hooks are all from Wizardry Stitchery, and the D-ring is from Emmeline Bags. So let's first sew up our straps to the backpack. I like to grab a ruler and a marker, and on the wrong side of your fabric, so if you're using waterproof canvas, that's the like shiny rubbery side. On the wrong side, draw a midpoint line. Now this is just going to be 2 inches in from the side. If you're using quilt cotton, you can easily just press this with your iron to find that midpoint. But I find with waterproof canvas, it's just easier if I use a marker and a ruler. Go ahead and repeat this process on your second strap. Once you have that midpoint line marked, you're going to fold your long side edges up to meet that midpoint mark, wrong sides together. And again, if you're using quilt cotton, go ahead and press this. You could also press this if you're using the waterproof canvas. If you're using vinyl or you're finding a hard time with your waterproof canvas, just use clips and just go along the entire length of the strap, clipping those edges to meet that midpoint mark. Once you have one side clipped, go ahead and do the same with the other side. So now both of the raw edges should be touching one another and you should be seeing the right side of your fabric. So now before we fold this completely, let's wrap up these ends. So just unclip a couple inches away from your short ends, open that fold up a little bit, and then fold it in anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. I really don't measure this. And then just clip down that fold where that short edge is wrong sides together along the main part of the panel. And now just refold down your long edges and adjust the clips on the short edge. And now you should have all of your raw edges enclosed so that when we go to fold this hot dog style and include the clips, we don't have any raw edges at all. You might have to kind of adjust this if you're using a stiffer fabric like I am. And you can go down the entire strap, just adding both folded edges to each other's clips. So once you reach the opposite end, do the same thing. Just unclip a couple inches away from that short edge, fold that short edge in, just a comfortable amount. You can clip it on the ends and then refold those long edges to just hide all of the raw edges. And there you go, you have one strap prepped. Go ahead and repeat this for the other strap. Once you have both of your straps prepped, go ahead and put these to the side. We're going to work on the strap connectors now. So grab all 5 of your strap connectors and lay them wrong sides up. You can fold them in half, wrong sides together, along the long edges to help you find the midpoint. You could also just mark this if you'd like with a pen. Once you have those pressed, open up your strap connector and fold the raw long edges, wrong sides together to meet that center crease that you just made with your iron or with your pen. Have both long edges meet in the middle, just like this, and then press down. We're just trying to tuck in these raw edges into the middle center of the back of the fabric. Now we're going to take both of our straps and our 5 connectors to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew along the folded edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. For the straps, you're going to sew along the long edges and the short edges since those are folded in. For the connectors, it's only going to be along these long edges. Don't sew along the raw short edges. Alright, once you have the top stitching done on your strap connectors and your straps, let's go ahead and add some hardware here. So I'm going to start with the straps. I'm going to put the strap connectors to the side. Grab one of your 1-inch sliders, lay it right side down. Grab your strap, and if you have a preference on which side is up, make sure you do that now. If you have like a bobbin thread and a top thread, you're going to lay it so that the top thread is down. Slide it underneath that middle bar, and then back up over that middle bar just like this. You can let it extend about 1.5 inches out from that middle bar, and then just fold it over just like this. So like I said, if you have top stitching, the top stitching is showing here and the bobbin thread is on the bottom. You can go ahead and clip this in place just like this. Go ahead and do the same thing with the other strap. Put these to the side. Go ahead and grab 3 of your strap connectors. And right now we're working on the backpack part, so grab the hardware you're going to be using for the backpack. Like I said, for the bottom of the backpack straps, I'm going to be using these triangle rings, and for the top where both straps hook up together, I'm going to use this D-ring. So grab one of your ring of choice, take your connector wrong side up, feed it through the end, and then wrap it around so that the wrong sides with the raw edges are together, and you can just clip these together to hold in place. Do this for the other 2 rings as well. All right, you can put these to the side. Grab your remaining strap connectors and your D-rings or triangle rings, whatever rings you're going to be using. These are going to be for the side of the bag to make this a shoulder bag or a crossbody bag. These are going to be attached a little bit differently. Flip your connectors so that they're wrong sides up. Grab any sort of a easy to erase marking tool. And we're going to measure 2 inches from the bottom of our connector on the wrong side. And I'm just making a very, very light line there. We're just finding the midpoint of our straps lengthwise on the back. Now grab your ring and slide it so that the wrong side of your strap connectors can come together, and fold them over so that one of the short edges meets that marked line. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to go over there. Okay, and then clip together. Go ahead and repeat this for the other ring. So now you should have your 5 rings and your 2 straps hooked up just like this. We're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to use a zipper foot to sew as close as we can along our straps to our hardware. So for example, for these triangle rings, I'm just going to pull this and sew as close as I can without hitting the metal right along this edge here. Same thing with the straps. We're just securing all of our hardware in place. You can go ahead and put your strap connectors to the side for a minute. We'll return to those after we finish our bag straps. So after you have your sliders connected, you can go ahead and stitch along this rectangle on the bottom, or stitch a small rectangle on the top to hold down the rest of this strap and really secure it in place. Or you can use a rivet press and add a rivet right here, which is what I'm going to do. I would say out of all of the what I would consider luxury bag making tools you could buy, the rivet press is probably my favorite. If you make a lot of bags, it's just such a fun addition to that, and it really makes your bags look more professional. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark a dot that's centered. I can do it on the back. That's centered in that rectangle I have sewn on the back of my slider. See, it's not on the front, but it's on the back. I'm going to do this for both of them. You could measure this if you want, but I'm just going to eyeball it. And then I have the hole punch die on my rivet press, and I'm just going to push down and punch a hole right where that dot is. I'm going to do the same for the other one. Okay, now I'm going to remove the hole punch die and put in my 10mm die. I've got these little 9mm rivets, and I just have to grab a long one and a short one. I like to insert the long one through the bottom. I don't really think it matters. And then you just push the short one on top of it, and it snaps in place. So you can take it to your rivet press and then just push down. And there you go. Now you have this nice little detail to your strap. Go ahead and repeat this for the other strap. There you go. Press down. You can go ahead and put all your rivets in your rivet press to the side. We're going to be adding quite a few more. And once again, this is totally optional. You're more than welcome to just stitch this down if you don't have a rivet press. You could also use Chicago screws. You don't have to have a full tabletop press. You could have a hand press. There's a lot of different options, but it does add a really nice detail to the bag. And for me, anything that allows me to skip some top stitching, since I'm not the straightest top stitcher, I'm going to use that. Okay, so now grab 2 of your swivel hooks, grab 1 strap, and lay it so that the back of the strap on the slider is right side up. Take the opposite end, make sure this is nice and straight, grab the opposite end, and grab 1 of your swivel hooks, and put this on hook side down, slide it on, fold that raw edge over to your slider, and you should have something like this now. You should have your hook pointing out, your strap going into your slider, and then over that middle bar, pull it nice and tight, and there you go. You have a non-hooked edge over here, slider in the middle, hook on the other side. Repeat this process for the other strap. All right, this is where you're at. So now, grab the ends of your straps. You can roll this over so that it's the back of the strap side up. Grab your remaining swivel hooks and lay them so that they're hook side down. Fold over that edge about 1.5 inches. Can clip it to hold it. Do the same with the other strap. And this can be more or less, I just eyeball it. For me, what I'm trying to do is make sure I have enough room to top stitch next to the swivel hooks and then add a rivet or top stitch around the entire rectangle to hold it in place. All right, now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch right against this swivel hook just to secure it. If you're going to be top stitching down your straps, you're going to want to also trace these top stitch lines that are going parallel to one another and then top stitch to hold down the end of your strap. Just make a nice little rectangle right here holding down both sides of your strap next to the swivel hook. If you're going to be adding a rivet, you can still do that top stitching, or you can just do one line right next to the hook, which is what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so once you have this stitched down, I'm going to add a rivet. So I'm just going to mark a center dot on that tab by my swivel hook, just like this. Once again, I'm going to switch out my die to the hole punching die. Now there are other tools. You don't need this hole punching die. There are hand tools you can use instead. I just find this really easy. And I don't mind switching out the dies. I don't find it to be that much extra energy. And just like I did before, I'm just going to add 1 rivet to each strap. And there you go. You now have your backpack straps ready to go. These can be adjusted to be a shoulder strap or a crossbody strap. If you feel like you like a longer crossbody strap, increase the size of this to 60 inches. Otherwise, 40 inches is fine. You can go ahead and put your straps to the side. We'll attach these at the very end of the bag. So now we're going to be working with our strap connectors. Whichever strap connectors you have for the side of the bag, go ahead and put those to the side. We're going to add those later. Grab your 2 bottom connectors. So these are going to be on the bottom of the backpack, and then this one will be at the top of the backpack. And we're going to just angle off the edges. So mark a dot on the seam that is 1/2 inch in from the raw edge. And then you can just go to the opposite corner from that dot and then draw a line just like this. Do the same with your other strap, but we're just going to do it on the opposite side. So this time I'm going to mark my dot right here and then draw a line from the opposite corner up to that dot that's nice and straight. There we go. Grab some scissors and then just cut along that marked line. So now in the bag making process, you should have just completed step 4, which is adding the base to the outer exterior panels. As you can see, I'm not putting the pocket on the front of the bag in this tutorial. That is just to save time. You are more than welcome to add a pocket here. We're going to be working on the back panel. So this is my front panel. I'm going to put this to the side. So here is my back panel. You can see I tried to do some sort of a back zipper thing. It didn't work out, so don't ask about it. But grab your 2 D-rings or triangle rings that have the angled cutout, and we're going to apply them right above the base panel on the sides. So they should be pointing up into the center of the bag. It should not be like this. It should be pointing up towards the center of the bag. So rotate them however you need. And you can see I'm just lining it up so that the very bottom tip is right against that bottom panel. Go ahead and clip these in place. Now grab your 3rd ring, when this is going to be the one you're using for the top of the bag. Like I said, I'm using a different one. This is a little bit bigger, so it holds 2 of the swivel hooks a little bit easier. And we're going to lay this so that it's pointing straight down into the center of the bag. And it's centered along the seam between the 2 exterior panels. And then we're just going to clip that in place as well. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine and base these on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you're not using rivets, also trace your top stitching that goes up to the rings and right across it and back down. You could do a little X in here, whatever you like. You just want to make sure that this is very secure. Do the same on the other side. We're going to repeat that for the top. Once again, just top stitching over our previous top stitches, maybe doing an X, any sort of design. If you're using rivets, you don't have to add the additional top stitching. You could just baste it down. I will be doing the additional top stitching just to show you. Okay, so now we have our 3 backpack straps top stitched on. I'm going to move on to step 5 now, where we attach these 2 panels together before I rivet this and before we add the side tabs. So move on to the first part of step 5, which is just sewing along these straight edges. Don't attach the base just yet. Once you have your side seam sewn and your seam allowance trimmed down, if you wanted to add rivets to this, now's the time to do it. Now, I know it's a little tricky, so just flip it right side out. The reason I didn't add the rivets before sewing the seams together is just because the side seams are so big, it can be difficult to place your rivet and not have it too close to that seam. This just makes it easier so that you don't end up sewing over it or having a kind of a off-centered rivet. So let's do the bottom rivets first. I'm just going to mark with my pen a center dot for placement. And I'm just going to do 1 rivet in each spot. You could do more if you wanted. And just like before, we're going to grab our rivet press. I'm going to switch to the hole punching die. And I am going to carefully insert my bag so that I'm only punching my hole through my strap connector and the back panel of my bag, not through the front panel of my bag. Let's go ahead and punch that hole. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now, for the top, if you want to add a rivet, now's a good time to do it. Just remember that you will still have a generous 1/2 inch seam allowance here. So I suggest centering your rivet pretty close to the top stitching along the D-ring. So I'm just going to put it right there. Go ahead and cut out the hole for this as well. All right, switch out your dies. Once again, I have a 10mm die, and I'm using 9mm rivets. I'm not using a 9mm die because I didn't see one on the CamSnaps website. From what I've seen, it's better to have a die that's bigger than your rivet than a die that's smaller. I have used an 8mm die before on these 9mm rivets, and what happens is you end up with this kind of dome-shaped press that kind of makes it look banged up. I honestly didn't mind the look of it, but if you want to keep that really smooth look of your rivet, go with a bigger die if you can't find the exact size. I'm just going to put it in there, push it down. All right, now that you have your connectors attached and riveted in place, we need to add our side connectors that are going to go for the crossbody strap. So I do find it easiest to use some double-sided tape here. I'm using this Dritz wash-away tape. First, I'm going to add a small piece to the raw-edged bottom that's not folded up, just like that. And then take your short raw edge and fold it up to meet the other raw edge of your remaining strap connector. There you go, and that's just going to hold it in place. If you want, you can go ahead and press this as well, and that will help keep it in place. Do the same with the other connector. So now you should have both of your connectors with the raw edge tucked into the back, and then the right side looks just like this. Grab your bag, and you want the side seam of the bag. So you can tell this is the side seam because I have the backpack strap down here. We're working on the side seam of the bag. Mark a line that is 1 inch down from the top of the side seam. I do suggest using some sort of a chalk pen here instead of a pen or marker. So now we're going to place our strap so that the top edge is just meeting that marked line, just like that. You can use double-sided tape, you can use pins, whatever you need to hold this in place, go ahead and use that. I know it seems like a lot of extra stuff, but I do also have this leather double-sided tape. You don't really want to sew over this on a domestic machine, but it's great at holding everything in place. So I like to add a small piece of it right along the center of my connector so that I know I won't sew over it, but it will hold the connector in place. So then again, just on that marked line, just so it's meeting it, it can be just slightly below it, and then centered on that seam. There we go. So we're going to sew these on one at a time. We're going to go to the sewing machine. Make sure you move the other side of the bag out of the way. And we're just going to top stitch over this along our previous top stitches and along the bottom. If you're not using rivets or anything like that, you can go ahead and put an X in here. Thread that is the same color as your fabric is going to be your friend right now. If you're not a strong top stitcher, you can see I am a terrible top stitcher, and I'm just using thread that is a light yellow so that you barely even see it. If you're a fantastic top stitcher, use a darker or a lighter thread, something that stands out. But if you're not, just use a thread that hides in there. I'm going to add a couple rivets to this after I top stitch this on. Okay, so this should be what you're left with. You see we just top stitched around it. I'm going to add 2 rivets to this. So when adding double rivets, I like to kind of place them first just to get an idea of how it's going to look. because sometimes I assume they are bigger or smaller than they actually are. So you can just lay them wrong sides up to get a good idea. So I'm going to place one right here and then one right here. I'm never very good at centering this. You could measure this and do that, but I like to live on the edge. Okay, I'm going to grab my rivet press now and then just pop those holes in there. And then I'll just add my rivets like I've done previously. And that's how you add one of these side straps. I'm going to repeat this exact same process on the remaining side seam, and then we'll be done with the modification for the backpack. So now we're going to talk about the modification to make this extended zipper panel on the top. For this, you're going to need 4 cuts of fabric. Now this can be your lining or exterior or something totally different. Each cut should measure 2.5 inches by 13 inches. I have each of mine interfaced with SF101. For a zipper tab, I'm going to be using a piece of vinyl. This is cut at 3 inches by 2 inches. You could also use a metal zipper end if you like. My zipper is a zipper tape and it is 15 inches long. The zipper and the zipper pull are from Wizardry Stitchery. If you'd like, you could go longer with your zipper and then trim it down, but I will be using a 15-inch long zipper. So to start, we're going to work with our zipper. Find the end that is open when the zipper is open. So for example, when I close it, it closes like this. When I open it, this would be open just like that. Measure down 1 inch from the top of that open edge and just mark a line in the seam allowance. Do the same on the other side. We're just measuring down 1 inch. Now on that 1 inch mark line, just pinch on that spot, and then you'll see the zipper coils naturally want to go up and over at a 90-degree angle. Just go ahead and let them. So you should have it folded just like this, with the zipper angling up and over to the right. Grab a clip and just clip that in place. Do the same on the other side. Just pinch at that 1 inch mark and let it go up and over. Okay, now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're just going to baste down these edges so that we don't have to worry about them while we're making our zipper panel. Now grab one of your zipper panels and lay it right side up. You can go ahead and mark a 1/2 inch in on each of the long top sides of your zipper panel. Now grab your zipper tape and lay it right side down and just line up that top of your angled open edge with your 1/2 inch mark and the edge of the zipper against the edge of the fabric. It should be just like this. So the zipper stops a 1/2 inch before it reaches the end of the fabric. Just go ahead and clip along this top edge. And as I get close to the other side, I like to transfer that mark, that's the 1/2 inch mark on my fabric, up to my zipper tape so I know where to start and stop my stitches. So now we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance along this clipped edge. Make sure you backstitch well at the beginning over this zipper, and then stop and backstitch well at your mark a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the other side of the fabric. So once you have the zipper attached to one of your zipper panels, grab a second zipper panel and lay that right side down over that other zipper panel, and then just clip along that edge that has the zipper. So now we're going to go back to the sewing machine and we're just going to stitch over those stitches that we already made so that we still have the 1/2 inch unstitched on both sides of the fabric. So once you have both of these attached to your zipper just like this, we're actually going to close up the edge of the zipper panels that are by the open end of the zipper. So where your zipper tail is, leave that alone. But where your zipper end is that veers off into the panel, close that up. And we're going to sew along the short edge of these zipper panels at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So once you have the short seams sewn together, you can go ahead and clip this down to about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then you can just clip down any extra zipper tape you have hanging over. So now we're going to take our zipper panels and fold them right sides out and poke out that corner, and then pull both panels away from the zipper tape and flatten against that zipper as best you can, and then we'll press it with an iron. So once you've finger pressed it pretty well so that it's nice and straight, go ahead and grab your iron and then just press along the fabric. Now we just have to close up this short end on the other side of the zipper. So all we're going to do now is we still have that 1/2 inch flap hanging off that we left unsewn. Just go ahead and fold your fabric wrong sides together so that it's about 1/4 inch, and then press. Now you can flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Try to get them to match up. We want them to be in the same spots. So focus more on getting these two folds to be equal and in the same spot rather than getting that perfect 1/4 inch. We're just trying to hide all these raw edges. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along all of the folded edges, not the raw edge. So at an 1/8 inch seam allowance, we're going to top stitch along these short edges, right along the zipper, and along the other short edge that's still open, closing it up. All right, now that you have one panel attached, we're just going to repeat that process for the other side. So grab another zipper panel and mark 1/2 inch in from the short edges along the top edge that you're going to attach your zipper to. Then take your zipper panel with the zipper and lay it zipper right side down. Line up that angled edge so that it comes right to that marked line so that it's 1/2 inch away from the edge. And then just clip the raw edge of the zipper tape to the top edge of your zipper panel. Once you get to the end of your zipper panel that has that mark that the zipper tape will cover, just transfer that mark to your zipper tape so that you know where to stop. So now let's take this to the sewing machine and sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After you have one panel attached to the zipper, grab your remaining panel and lay it right side down against that panel that you just sewed on, and then clip in place. So at the sewing machine, you can go over the stitches you previously made, making sure on the long edge of the zipper that you keep that 1/2 inch on the zipper tab unsewn. Once you get to the end of your zipper tape on the open edge of the zipper, you can go ahead and sew down this short edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, making sure you don't get the other zipper panel in that seam. Once you have those sewn together, you can go ahead and trim down the seam allowance to 1/4 inch on the short edge and trim off that excess zipper tape hanging off the end. We still want this zipper tape there. We don't want to do anything to that yet. Once again, we're going to fold these panels out so that they're right sides out, wrong sides together. Make sure you poke out that corner. I like to press it with my fingers first before I bring in the iron, just to make sure everything's nice and straight. Now I'm just going to press it first along that folded edge and along the zipper. And now with this excess end we have over here, I'm just going to fold it down, wrong sides together, to try to hide that short raw edge, and then press it with my iron. And then flip it over, and on the back, just press this down so that it meets the same spot as the other edge. You don't want one to be higher than the other, because then when you sew them together, it might not catch both of the edges. So just press it like that. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and top stitch along all the folded edges of this last zipper panel. So you can leave this raw edge unstitched, or you can base stitch it closed. But we're just going to do an 1/8 inch all the way around the edge and by the zipper and on the short edge. So here's what you should be. Now both of the panels are top stitched. The last part of prepping the zipper is adding the zipper tab on the end. I'm using a piece of vinyl, which means I can pretty much just wrap it over that end and top stitch it closed just like this. You could also use something like this, which is just a metal zipper end that screws on to the end of your zipper just like that. Or you can use a piece of fabric that you sew together and then turn right side out and then attach on here. So you have a lot of different options for your zipper end. I like the look of this vinyl, so I'm just going to wrap it over the zipper just like this. I have the shorter ends of the zipper tab meeting one another. And now I'm going to top stitch along the sides and over the zipper and back up the other side. This will just hold it all in place. So now that your zipper panel is done, all we have to do is add it to the lining. So grab your top lining piece and fold it right sides together. And we're going to mark the bottom straight edge, not the top curve edge, the bottom straight edge. We're going to mark on the back, the midpoint. Now grab your zipper panel and find the midpoint along the top edge of your zipper panel. If you have a preference on which direction your zipper faces, go ahead and think about that now. Right now we're just finding the midpoints and sewing it all together. So I'm going to do both panels, finding the midpoint of both panels, and then just marking in the seam allowance on the zipper panel. Grab your top lining piece that you already marked and lay it right side down, and then line up your marked midpoints together, just like this. So it's right side down against the top of your zipper panel. And the top of your zipper panel is where the zipper is. So the zipper pull should be on the top of your zipper panel. Go ahead and clip these edges together. You can go ahead and sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or we can just add the bottom panel as well and do it all at once. So I'm going to grab the bottom lining panel and lay it with the right side up. I'm going to grab my top panel that's already clipped to my zipper and lay it so that the top lining panel is right side down, and then just match up their edges. So you don't really need to mark the midpoint on the bottom panel, since it should line up perfectly along the edge of the top lining panel. Be careful that your zipper panel doesn't shift if you chose not to baste it. And we're just going to add that bottom panel to the clips that we already have in place for the top panel and the zipper. There we go. So now you should have a little sandwich. You have the bottom lining panel, your zipper panel with the zipper pull facing up, and then your top lining panel facing right side down. So now we're just going to sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have this all sewn together, you can go ahead and press the top lining panel away from the zipper and the bottom panel, just like this. Get it nice and flat. All right, and now we're just going to repeat this for the other side of the zipper panel. So grab your remaining top lining panel and fold it right sides together so that the short edges are matched up. And we're just going to mark the midpoint along that bottom straight edge. Take your lining unit with the zipper panel and fold it so that the raw edge zipper panel is facing up and you can see your midpoint line. Grab your remaining top lining panel and lay it right side down so that the straight edge matches up with that raw edge of the zipper panel. Match up those midpoint marks and pin together. And just like before, you're more than welcome to go to the sewing machine and sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance before adding the bottom panel, or we can just go ahead and add the bottom panel. So grab your bottom panel so that the shorter edge is up top. Lay it right side up. Grab your top lining panel and lay it right side down, matching up the straight edges of the bottom and top panels, and then just clip this bottom panel to the lining panel. Make sure you don't lose the zipper panel in between them. You can just add the bottom panel to the clips you already have. Okay, now you can take this to the sewing machine and just sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright, and just like before, we're going to press open that top lining panel away from the zipper panel. And there you go. That's how you modify the zipper so that you have a zipper panel that extends into the bag instead of in the seam of the lining. You can continue sewing your bag together just as the pattern suggests. When you're sewing these two sides together, make sure you keep the zipper tab out of the way, so just tuck it in there, but everything else stays the same. The last modification for this bag is done after the bag is completed, so I'll meet you at the very end of the bag making process and we'll add some grommets. So now we're going to move on to the drawstring portion of the bag. For this, you're going to need 12 grommets. We're going to create a drawstring and a cincher to hold it in place. For the drawstring, I'll be using waterproof canvas. My waterproof canvas is cut at 2 inches by 42 inches long. You could also use quill cotton here. Just make sure you interface it with SF101. For the cincher, I'll be using a piece of my vinyl from the bag. This is cut at 4.5 inches by 3 inches. I have 12 of these oval grommets. Now these grommets are not screwed together. You can see they have prongs and they push together and then you close the prongs. So you'll need 12 of these. You'll also need this template, and I'll have a link for this down in the description of the video, but print this template off and this is going to show you placement for where each grommet should go on the bag. And to help with grommet installation, I do suggest using some sort of a fabric glue like this Beacon 3-in-1. So since we're still in sewing mode, let's just go ahead and sew together our drawstring so that we have that out of the way. On the wrong side of your drawstring, mark a midpoint line. So this should be 1 inch in from the long edge. And mark it along the entire drawstring. Once you have that mark, go ahead and fold the long edges up to meet that mark. This is going to be wrong sides together. If you're using quilt cotton, you can go ahead and press this here. I'm going to use clips just to hold it in place. Once you have one edge folded in towards the center, go ahead and repeat that with the other edge so that both of the long edges should now be meeting along the center of your strap. Let's go ahead and close up these short edges. So just a couple inches from the short edge, go ahead and remove the clips. Fold that short edge in anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, wrong sides together. And then refold those long edges up to that midpoint line just like that. Do the same on the other side as well. And now you can fold this hot dog style, folded sides up to meet. So everything is tucked in and we have a nice skinny strip that will be our drawstring. Once you have your drawstring clipped just like this, we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew along all 4 edges at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Alright, once you have your drawstring done, you can go ahead and put this to the side. So now you're going to grab your finished bag and we're going to be working on the very top of it. Grab the cutout that's provided in the description down below. Now you can see this template is designed for these types of grommets. I tried to use these and they just did not work. So I can't show you how to use something that I can't get to work. So instead, we're going to still use the template, but we're going to use these. Now, if you left off the zipper, this is going to be much easier for you. If you have the zipper installed, this can be a little bit more difficult. So the only challenge with working with these grommets is that we don't want to cut our top stitching and we don't want to cut this seam right here between the top lining and the zipper panel. So we have just enough room with these oblong grommets to install this, but you have to make sure when you're cutting out your inner circle to install, you don't cut that stitching. I'll show you how to do this. First, grab that template and line it up with the center seam on the front of the bag. Grab a few clips and just clip it to the top of your bag. Do your best to keep it nice and flat. So now what I like to do is I cut out the largest circles from the template and then I just draw a line going straight up and down, connecting those marked lines on the template in that circle. Do this for all 3. Now grab one of the oval grommets and lay it over the marked line. You want to make sure it's, for the most part, pretty straight. And what we're trying to make sure of is that this inner circle here isn't going over this seam or these top stitches. So just move it up and down. You can feel where all the stitching is and you can see where the top stitching is. You really just want this line to be centered on your grommet. So I just adjust it, and when I can feel that it's not going to interfere with the top stitching or the seam in the lining, I leave it in place and then I just trace that inner circle just like that. And I'll do this for all 3 of them. I'm not too concerned if they're perfectly straight or not. Alright, so now you have an idea of how it's going to look. You can go ahead and repeat this for the other side. So take your template and lay it in the opposite direction. go ahead and clip it to the top to keep it in place. And then just once again, draw a straight line through the center of your circles. This marker doesn't work quite as well on vinyl. And then just take your grommets, lay them on top. Again, making sure you're not going to end up cutting your top stitching or the seam in the lining. It's probably most challenging right here by the center of the panel. As you go further out, you have more wiggle room. All right, once you have all of your ovals marked, you can kind of look at it. If you have any that are just really wonky, you can go ahead and fix them. But if you're happy with it, let's cut this out. So I like to start with a seam ripper, and you're going to seam rip through that exterior layer and the lining. Just make a hole like that. And then grab your scissors and just cut along your traced mark. It's best if you cut along the outside of your oval because you marked on the interior of your grommet, which means you're going to need more space than that. So once you have a rough cut, grab a grommet with the prongs and insert that in the front side. Grab a grommet without the prongs and insert it on the back, and we're just going to kind of take a look and see if we need to trim it down anymore. So what I do is I just kind of pull on it. I pull on the fabric up and down and side to side to really try to get it out of there. But I see I still have to cut a little bit more over here. So I'm just going to go in and cut along there. What we're trying to see is if we can just manipulate the fabric out of the way. There we go. That'll work. Okay. So before I finish this off, I'm going to grab some glue. And you can do this on both of the grommets or just one of them. I'm just going to add the glue to the one that goes against the lining. And then I'm just adding glue right in the crease of the grommet. Just going to make sure it stays in place. So go ahead and put it on there. Pull your fabric around so that you don't have any poking out in the middle. It should kind of snap shut. Once you have that, you can push down these prongs. After a few of them, it gets kind of hard to push them down. So flip your bag over so you have the back facing you. I like to grab a small hammer and I just hammer down those prongs. These are pretty heavy duty prongs, so they're not going to go anywhere. So I just give them a little hammer down to make sure they're not going to snag on anything. There you go. And if you have any little threads peeking through, you can grab some snips and you can just snip those off. And there you go. There's one grommet attached. So you're going to do this with 12 grommets. So I'm just going to speed through this for the rest of it. Hope you enjoy the music. right, it's a good amount of extra work. You know, it's not a fast thing putting in these grommets, but man, does that just add something special to the bag, doesn't it? All right, so let's insert this drawstring, and then we just have to build our cinch, and we're done. So I'm gonna insert the drawstring into the front of the bag, the center grommet, and then you just weave it in and out. So front and back. So once you have the drawstring installed, put it to the side, and let's work on our cinch. So what we're gonna do is take our cinch piece of fabric, lay it right side up, fold the fabric right sides together so that the long edges are up against each other, and then just clip along this edge. Now we're gonna go to the sewing machine and sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have them sewn together, you're gonna wanna turn this right side out. This can be fairly difficult depending on which material you're using. My suggestion is just take your time. So once you have your cincher turned right side out, you want to fold it so that that seam runs right along the center of your rectangle so that you have one side that is seamless and the seam runs along the back of the other side. We're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're just going to sew along these edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now we need to place the cincher on the drawstring. So take your drawstring and lay it flat just like this. Now our drawstring is a little bit wider than what the pattern suggests. That's because I wanted a wider drawstring for these bigger grommets. Take your cinch and wrap it over your drawstring just like this. Now, in the end, we want it to look something like this. It needs to be tight enough that when you push it up, it'll hold the drawstring in place, but loose enough to actually allow the drawstring to move. What you can do, especially if you're working with vinyl, is just overlap these and then stitch a couple lines along the back to keep it in place. That's what I did on the red bag that I showed you in the beginning of the video. Or if you have enough slack, you can use rivets here, which I'm going to try that this time because I didn't do that before. And the trick with the rivets is you want the ends of the vinyl to overlap enough so when you place your rivet, it goes through both of the back ends and the front. Now this is a lot of layers here, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to work, but we will just figure it out. So now, keeping our clips in place, we can mark where we want to install our rivets. I'm going to install them. I can feel this very thick seam along the back, and I want to avoid that with my rivets. So I'm just going to install one above it and one below it. Just like that. So now I'm going to add my clips on before I remove this. Now I'm just going to remove each of the drawstrings, keeping the clips in place. So I'm going to do my very best to keep all of this in place while I'm doing the rivets. So I'm going to punch a hole first on one. So I'm just going to insert a rivet into this hole so that it doesn't move around on me while I punch the hole for the other one. So there we go. Insert it all the way in. And these rivets just kind of snap together, so that will hold it enough while I punch the hole on the other side. All right, now let's add the rivet to this one as well. All right, so I just kind of press them together. Like I said, they snap together pretty nicely. So that will hold it in place before I push them together. Set each one of these rivets. All right. If you want, you can go on the back here and just kind of clean this up a little bit so it's not so messy. So yeah, this is the front of the cinch and this is the back. I'm okay with that raw edge back there. If you're not, you can always tuck it in and fold it under like we've done with the straps. So let's insert the drawstring back into here. And this can be a little bit challenging. It's not hard getting it out, but it can be hard getting it in. Okay, these cinchers can be quite difficult to get the drawstring through. But once you get it in there, you can just pull it shut, and there you go. Drawstring is done, and it is adorable. A lot of work, but worth it in my opinion. All right, you guys ready to see the bag? It's so cute, and I know all of my fellow Animal Crossing lovers out there probably squealed out loud when you saw this adorable dodos. panel pattern. It is so cute. It's from Backstitch Fabrics. I will have a link for their face grip down in the description of this video. This is such a cute bag. Let's go ahead and add the straps and show how it's a backpack. So you just take each of your straps. One will clip to the top D-ring, and then it will clip down to one side, just like that. And then you'll do the same with the other side. You'll clip it to the top D-ring, and then to the opposite edge. And there you go. Adorable drawstring backpack. What? This is so stinking cute, guys. This is just such a cute, cute backpack. You can do so much with this. So let me show you what this looks like as a crossbody bag while we're here. I'm just going to remove the backpack straps. So all I need is one of these straps now, and I'm just going to hook it onto the side like that. And then onto the other side. I think the strap's a little long, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it. All right. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. I'll back up. But see, then it's just a really cute little shoulder bag. Man, this is a fun one, guys. This is a really, really, really fun bag to make. I hope you really enjoyed the modifications. If you have more ideas, I'd love to hear them down in the comment section. Part of the goal with these modifications is to get you to be more creative as well. I mean, that's what we do when we have a bag pattern that we love and we switch up a bunch of stuff on it. We have to kind of do some trial and error and get creative. Some of these modifications are much easier than others. I would say that the zipper panel is a much easier modification. The grommets are not bad. It is quite a bit of time. I would say the cinch, honestly, is probably one of the hardest things to do. I think if I would have used woven fabric instead of vinyl, it would have been much, much easier. But the backpack edition is also a very, very simple one to make, and you can add that to almost any bag. You just have to put one D-ring on the top, two on the bottom. Now you got a backpack. I did not realize that until recently, and now I want to make a backpack out of everything. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you have anything at all you want to say, please leave it in the comments of this video. You can also email me. I'm jessica@OklaRoots.com. You can find me all over social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Just look up OklaRoots. You'll find me. Don't forget, we have a fantastic Facebook group full of people who just want to see you make cool stuff and answer any questions you might have. I'm so, so proud of that community and how loving and kind-hearted it is. So if you're not already part of the OklaRoots Creatives Facebook group, go ahead and check that out. I'll have a link for it down in the description of this video. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Get out there and make something.